Hello nerds and nerdettes, welcome back to the channel once again. Today I have another top 5 video for you guys. It is actually going to be a little bit more of a detailed version of a short that I put out in the very beginning of when I started putting out videos and content on YouTube and TikTok. And that's going to be my top 5 favorite manga series in my collection. I'm going to be a little bit more detailed about it, and the main kind of reason and interest of doing this video is just because kind of me covering how my top 5 favorite series are going to change from year to year. I think that's very interesting how, you know, something that could be number 1 could be pushed back to number 5 or even not on the list at all, depending on how many more series you've read since then or how your taste has changed as you've gotten older or whatever it may be. So we're going to go ahead and start and jump right into it with number 5, which is going to be Blade of the Immortal. I absolutely love this series. It is a, I guess, fictional samurai story. It takes place in a very realistic samurai setting, feudal Japan setting, but the main character Manji has a curse in a way called bloodworms that allow him to pretty much heal from any injury given, and he's pretty much done with life, doesn't really want to be immortal anymore, doesn't want to be unkillable anymore, but the only way to get rid of the bloodworms based off the instruction that the witch that gave him the bloodworms has given is that he has to slay 1,000 bad men, which he kind of ends up following in a way, but gets kind of tangled up with other characters that take him down a little bit more of a different path and story. This book at first, which I probably said before, was nowhere near my top 5 list at all. The first volume is actually, in my opinion, very rushed. I feel like it jumps to dispatching and fighting and getting rid of some very important villain characters, and I think it moves a little too quickly. I usually like a little bit more of a build-up, but by volume 2 and now up to volume 7, it definitely has earned its place on my top 5, and it's a really fun read. The pacing and the storytelling is very realistic in a way, other than Manji's abilities, and the art is absolutely breathtaking. It is, if you took kind of traditional manga style art and mixed it with Jim Lee, that's almost what you would get. It's very sketchy, sometimes photorealistic at times, and some of the panels in this book and in this series are just absolutely breathtaking. So because of those reasons, that's why Blade of the Immortal is going to be my number 5 pick. And we could go ahead and jump to number 4, which is going to be I Am a Hero. These little Dark Horse omnibuses were such a pain early on when I was collecting. They were put out and quickly went out of print, were extremely hard to track down, but this was actually my first completed manga series physically, and I enjoyed reading it. I'm not saying this book is for everyone or its writing is amazing by any means. Its ending is definitely lackluster, so those of you that kind of need a good ending to really like a series, this is probably not going to be for you, but this is one of the most fun I've probably had reading a manga, just because of the world and the quirky, odd characters, the fast-paced, like, chase scenes, the twist on the zombie apocalypse that this story takes place in and how it came to be is very interesting. I think the main character, Hideo, he is actually a character that suffers from some form of mental disorder. I think it's maybe he might be schizophrenic. I'm not 100% sure. I've read it forever ago, but he has odd visions when he's awake, almost like nightmarish things that he sees while he's awake and walking about and going about his life. And because he's so used to those visions, when the zombie apocalypse actually pops off, he almost handles it like a simple day-to-day task because he's just so used to being in fear. And It's a very interesting twist on the main character and the hero of the story, because he is not heroic, he is not flawless, he's a very odd character with some very odd interests, but he is forced into this world and forced to protect people he cares about and make big decisions. And that's a very interesting concept, especially in a zombie story, and something you don't typically see. Usually the main character of a zombie story is a complete Chad that knows how to shoot every gun and fist fight monsters or whatever it may be, but Hideo is not that, and that is just makes the story itself so much more special to me, at least, because I really enjoyed flawed characters. I don't love flawless, perfect, able to do anything characters. I like characters that struggle a bit. But with that being said, we can go ahead and jump to number 3, which is going to be Akira in this beautiful box set, hardcovers. I'm sure you guys have seen this in my collection video or seen this in your local comic book stores or on Amazon or however. They're everywhere. Everyone wants them. They are beautiful. This is definitely an amazing way to collect it, on a little side note here. But Akira, a lot of its popularity came from the animated film that came out before the manga title was actually finished up. So despite that being an animated movie for the series, the story does not go exactly like the movie. It actually veers off quite a bit around the halfway point. There's actually a 2-part to the entire series. There's a more governmental espionage mystery style story, and then there's a much more sci-fi post-apocalyptic side after the halfway point. So that's super interesting. I love stories that, you know, start off as something that may be somewhat typical and then completely morph into something that you weren't expecting and catch you by surprise. Volume 2 of this set was my favorite volume. I love the character of Tetsuo and his supporting cast. I mean, they come out of nowhere. You don't expect the characters that end up being kind of his close friends being his close friends, and then suddenly they all get forced together and forced to fight epic battles or run from a military or whatever it may be. It definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat, and it's very, very important to the manga world. I think this is like the first manga that really caught fire and got a whole lot of popularity that carried over to the States. And the manga version, I think, is a lot better than even the movie. So if you do like the movie, then definitely check out the manga. It's not like the movie at all, so don't go in expecting that, but it is obviously pretty much the same world, same characters, but the story that takes place is vastly different, and it's really something special, and it's fun to read, and it definitely earned its place at number 3 on my list. But we can go ahead and jump to number 2, which is going to be Vinland Saga. It is really something special. I think Thorfinn, who is the main character in the series, is someone that anyone can kind of aspire to be, especially his later self towards the later half of the series. And it's also a historical fiction manga, so setting, even some characters and stuff like that are inspired or are historical, but the story itself is fictional. And so I think people that enjoy history or historical events or whatever it may be would enjoy this manga as well. But also, besides that, the action scenes that actually take place in this are beautifully illustrated. Storytelling, again, you start somewhere and then it morphs and changes and you end up somewhere where you would not have expected. But it's one hell of a ride with Thorfinn to kind of learn who he is, his humanity, what forgiveness is, and the changes that he goes through really makes you look inward and self-reflect. And I think any book that either makes you feel something or makes you look internally and think of different ways you could be looking at things in your own life is definitely something special and worth reading for anyone, especially if you can walk away with a lesson. But this could possibly maybe even slide into my number one if my number one wasn't so strong, which I might be a spoiler to some of you guys, but this is definitely one of my favorite things I've ever read. And despite this being a manga only list, I think this would be on even a hybrid list of my favorite things I've ever read, somewhere in that list as well. So definitely worth checking out, and these little hardcovers are absolutely beautiful and easy to handle, and it definitely is going to maybe stay in my number 2 spot forever, if not move higher. But that's Vinland Saga, so we can go ahead and go to number 1. The one and only Berserk. If you guys watched the short that I put out or watched really any of my videos, I've said Berserk is my favorite thing I've ever read. Doesn't matter if we're talking comics, novels, manga, letters, whatever you want to put in that is a reading medium. This is my favorite thing that I've ever read. This is absolutely as good as you've probably heard it is, and if it's not in your collection, I think you should definitely get it in your collection. For me, it was a life-changing event reading this series, and it's, I mean, I can't even put into words how important to me and probably to a lot of people that this series is, and the character of Guts. The story overall just follows the character of Guts as he grows in a very dark, depressing, gloomy world, but somehow pushes through not only the world that he exists in, but the events that take place in his life to find hope and become a better character, a better person than he was the previous chapter you read in, or the previous volume, whatever it may be. He's always pushing forward and striving to be a better person and protect those that he loves. So definitely give this a try. But this is definitely something great and going to be remembered throughout history in this community, probably until it goes away, if it goes away. But definitely please check this out if your taste resembles anything close to mine, or honestly, even if it doesn't, I just really beg of you to check it out. It is 100% an amazing read. And don't knock Volume 1. Flipping through Volume 1, you're going to notice that the creator, Kentaro Miura, isn't fully comfortable with his characters or his story yet. It's still early days for the series itself. But as soon as you get into Volume 2, I promise you're going to be hooked. It's just definitely something special. Similar to Akira, it has a very important place in the community and the history of manga, and it's definitely worth the read. And I don't see this ever moving from number 1, just because I haven't read anything that has given me the same feeling and the same emotional reaction to characters or things that are said or events that this book has. And because of that, it is number 1, and this may be the only book that you'll probably see stay on here indefinitely. And it's really something special and worth checking out if you haven't already. But that does wrap up today's video. A little quick one for you guys. Just going into a little bit more detail of why my top 5 is my top 5. I am extremely interested in what you guys' top 5 is. And just because a series you like isn't on my top 5 does not mean your top 5 is wrong. This was just my personal list, and you are definitely entitled to whatever you want to be on yours. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys for getting us past 200 subscribers. I owe all thanks to you guys for all of the love and support and feedback. I think day by day, we're going to make this channel and the videos and the content that we pump out get better and better. It's still early days. We've only been about 2-3 months into this, and the love and support from you guys, I mean, it's extremely humbling, and I appreciate it beyond belief. I can't even put into words how amazed I am by the love and support from you guys. And of course, I'm going to be putting out the celebratory Q&A discussion video that will be coming out on Friday. So of course, you can use this video to post any interesting questions or discussions. You guys are going to steer the conversation in any route you want to go. So feel free to ask absolutely anything. I am an open book. And of course, if you haven't joined the Illuminati yet and you want to, hit that subscribe button. come join the community. It's an amazing place that we're building together. And I would also really appreciate you hitting that thumbs up icon. It helps the algorithm and in turn helps the community grow. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And of course, as always, stay nerd.